Okay, Master Mason note. George Cole coming at you here. Uh, do a Master Mason review. End of the week, something like that. I've kind of been kicking through. I'm thinking about which models to bring in. I personally do them because that's my business. I got to know that number because it's my safety analysis. It's always my covered model that, not only do you know the information when they told you what it was, this is absolute bulletproof. Why were you fucking around, Jordan? Stay in your system. So I was squeaking out a little bit when stuff does. Uh, coming through, again, usually this is going to be my big one, my Master Mason walkthroughs. They start first day. Here's air crane. It's usually the first thing you hit because it's on the first walkthrough. Short of your bag goes into a certain spot, you do a certain thing. Uh, Line, first rollers. If you're catching that, I would imagine this one's a little different. It works on a different schematic, but essentially the same thing, rock on line. So this is going to be stock if it's set up, if that's next to your pile, anything there from the night before. Pre-stock, double check, look for the crack. Floor under rollers, sure. How bad is it? Is this a morning clean deal first? If I can turn that with just the air crane, or do I prep off burn? Rip strips and rip treads or whatever there. We're going into bunks on the floor, stuff like that. Sorry, message coming through. Then it divides off tread stacks, tape, everything. Anything on the billets, on the blocks, all that in the morning. You wanna be able to get those problems off. On this one, it's not necessarily something I'm cleared for takeoff on yet, if at all. On the runway for certain ratings on machinery, you do. Tool shed, if that was the divergent model. Obviously for this one, it's going to be obviously gas lines, everything like that, torch heads, anything on that side of it. If you got to have the tools, make sure that you check those tools where they're supposed to be. If you need to be in the tool shed for sensors or something like that to come up. 3 days is not enough for me, to tell. I don't assume with the master sawyer they have on there anything like that's going to happen too much. They probably have that dialed into what block do what, how square the block got to be, and pretty much right down to rocket science. A rapid deceleration of a rocket. Burner's line, if that's on either side, you have to check that in on inspection. It doesn't necessarily need to be, I need to see the paperwork, but there's 24s in there, 2 inch, there's inch 12, inch and a half, something kicked around. If that's the pile and there's options, you got to know that stuff. Yeah, they're just parallels to me. These are all the same paperwork. You write these down. For me, I've done this a couple of times, so the video for me a little different. It should be a notebook come Monday that nobody sees. You don't whip it out. You don't make too much of a big deal about it because honestly, it's not too far done. You can get maybe, rough out that, you don't get on it with a tape measure, but you rough out the line in your head. What is it? 2 5-footers, 2 6-footers. So that's 12 foot plus the saw, maybe another 2 foot. And then you guesstimate the rest of it, 3 of them on the line, the saw, and another 2 of them, I bet, after cut, maybe even a little shorter. And that's the line plus the gap, 7/8 footers plus a bunch of extra and some jive. And that's your first line. And then one line, and then you kind of double that because it's a rectangle or whatever. And that's roughly about the length of the saws. And that's going to give you some block footage because you can put hypothetically whatever. This one right here is 10 feet long, and that one, whatever, 7. It's New Greenland, yeah. On here for what they do, that walks in. So obviously you just schematic the floor, the rail, on a caution zone. This is the person walk through, always up, always down. This is the air crane in that spot. So that way I don't burn you. Burners are kicking because the slag on the tip, when you burn fast enough, it's gonna your vapors in there too much. You go real fast like that, or you leave small groove. You're hot all day. You're deeper into the stone. Therefore, you're kicking up more rock, and chances go up for stuff. That's always the juggle on that spot. And if you wanted to make a full brief on that notation, this is what thermaling is. It's not just a vapor explosion and the surfaces of a rock that's drawn right here with a torch on it for pitch, roll, and yaw. and how to properly tap it. Anything that's going to come up as a specialty Y or M2 move that explains that MN function. It's between that length and this length, and that's one whole length. And one part of the operation, tool shed in itself is a whole inventory thing if that was the specific job. Striker, because it can't. Where are you doing it? How are you doing it? What's your operation in hand to tap? You watching the fish processing operations and stuff like that, on the top end of the manufacturing. I'm gonna. That's kind of my play. I don't mean to do too much with it, but I'm going for director of information technology. I'm trying to integrate this into this. It's an MIT for prison, college, integrating the front desk to NP problem, my STEM problems, the social law variable via military salty teaching method behind glass. And so on the floor, that's a good way to do that. You can describe the measurement of F with something like a SAW program or a thermaling program, or how to make a patent design, not just for a hillbilly spinner, but also the bare bones of this is going to go into everything that goes into your company. The application is the resume in a way that you bring to the table that says, I want these kinds of skills, or I'm looking for something that fits that form, that problem solved via that shape. And this one specifically does a just that duct tape hose clamp kick move that you get a handful of those hose clamp putters together and a screwdriver, and then that's now your operation inside of there, and it bang, man, it tears up a lot of time instead of running all the way to the mechanic shop, grabbing the pieces and the hoses and coming back. You get some of those things over time. You kind of teach them, it's not just I'm teaching you this over time, but this has to come over time because of adjusted numbers. And I want your mainline process and stuff, but gas line fixes, airline fixes, and how to do that correctly once or twice to gain the skills that you need to do and offset any mechanics that are doing other functions inside of that by management, maintenance team, Sawyer operation, ground guy, the whole command directive and their general command loading, and Princess Peach, Mario, the big orangey. Again, so I go to the workforce program with a lot of this. That's why I went to Delhan. I wanted to make sure that they knew this for the work function as I was going for that. Now, obviously, I don't have the master's degree by college level functionings, but I bring up the thermaling as engineered economics, the STEM mechanics. I get into botany. I could definitely tell you about the cases that I have had in the past about growing marijuana or something like that, and bringing in the social idea about the plant and the connection between there's rock on the floor, it doesn't move, and you're quantumly entangled to an EM based on you want that in your horizon, you capitalize on that number for something. So checking in on that, and the gas pressure is always at 80, the cracks and the reeds, and if it didn't, and that means that it's not going to hold, so you take it off. But if it's good, it's good, and you can know that number. 0 and 1, series of 1 numbers, and at the end of the day, that keeps the gray cloud effect away. So by doing that, you might have an operation where it does, and sometimes, whether it be the old schooler that does or doesn't, socially, whatever they believe in, and you got to deal with all that too. It's a real hard operation because it can go a lot of different ways given the harassment models and what work is supposed to do inside of a timeline. Again, for me, I do work, and that's thermaling and whatever the operation is inside of there. Because for me, it's just an 8-hour day, 10-hour day. At one day, they all start the first day, every day. Rocks do the same thing, veneers or otherwise, jacks, time cuts, that kind of stuff. I want to be able to, in the long game, from what I know from unloading saws, 5-footers on the ground, being the 5-foot guy, and having seen both sides and all sides of having sawyers, doing sawyers, knowing and understanding the offset of pulling people in and doing that, it gives me the luxury to be like, so I want to be able to work on the social model with my superiors that are defined masters of the shop. And now for me, that's my physics. You ain't got my physics, don't do my physics. Sometimes I do it and I try to keep it quiet in such a way that it's just friendly. But basically, I'm a Mason robot, program F11, and that's the result. And that comes in. People are loud. I know people think the saws keep you deaf, but somebody walks by, you can see them a lot farther out. Things stop and do. There's always kind of an EM field with things, and it's always adjusted around that kind of thing. And that's the saw. It will bite you. It'll bang you up, beat you up. All right. Anyways, so again, I like to bring out the overhead, pull that 90 down, and get my good cushion in. Get a good cushion in. Try to float around some stock. Also, be able to do premium. This is the top side with the right edge there. Working that model. It gets to some stuff that's garbage, but is it because there's a rip in the middle? And you don't feel great about throwing a 1x1 away that's in the heart of a 2x, but that's a hard hit. Table saw maybe with the right setup where I can pull that stuff all out and stack it together during an operation. Maybe. But you got to just pump that through, and figuring that out is usually the one. And 18.2s are not something you want to play around lightly with. You got to have the X-ray vision about things, be able to be ahead enough on stock so it just moves with the air crane, pull it down, get it on the ground.